Even the liberal media now spotlighting the problem.
The lead IRS agent investigating Hunter Biden telling Congress they uncovered evidence the president's son pressured a potential Chinese business partner to move ahead with the deal by invoking his father.
If true, this would seem to contradict comments from President Biden that he was not involved in his son's business deals.
Karine Jean-Pierre told me, I have not spoken to the president about that. I asked her, do you plan to? Can you get us that answer? And she said, Chuck, no, I don't plan to speak to him about this, and I don't plan to address this from the podium, which in many ways creates more questions about this issue.
Ben Domenech, Fox News contributor and editor-at-large for The Spectator, joining us now. Ben, great to have you here today. You know, we a lot of times catch those White House press briefings during our hours in the afternoon, and it seems there is some sense of growing pressure on this White House to explain these conversations that WhatsApp messaging seems to imply that the president was sitting right next to his son in that moment. Yet the president, in that exchange with Jackie Heinrich, says he has never discussed any of his dealings with Hunter. So where does all this go next?
Well, I think this absolutely is creating a difficult situation for the White House, as you said. They've continually tried to dodge on this issue. They've maintained that what the president says is absolutely true, incontrovertible, and now we have evidence to the contrary. Now, what we should understand is this is Hunter's side of the equation. Him promising these things to other foreign figures and the like does not mean that he actually delivered on the promises of access, influence, or to deliver on the things that they wanted. But in a sense, just the fact that we now have this evidence that he was promising these things means that the series of questions that lawmakers have is significantly larger than what they had before. And to the earlier points being made regarding the investigation and everything suggested around the idea that Weiss was not in control, this is of a critical nature to get to the bottom of. We cannot have a situation here where we are told that this was an investigation that proceeded in an orderly fashion, came to an orderly conclusion, and was operating in a transparent manner without any influence from the White House. If you had higher ups weighing in and preventing the Weiss investigation, or for anybody else for that matter, from doing their job, that includes, of course, the interests in searching the guest house, on the Biden property. It's fine for some of the people in the room to say, well, that might look bad. Well, it might, but that doesn't mean that you don't need to do it in order to do your job. The American people can have no confidence at this moment that this is an investigation that was occurring without pressure, even if it wasn't applied by Joe Biden himself, but from above, to make sure that this was something that they all swept under the rug and made go away as quickly as possible.
Not only sweeping under the rug, but taking Hunter Biden very publicly out in the form of the state dinner while you were speaking, Ben. That was video of Thursday. That was Thursday when the president held a state dinner entertaining Prime Minister Modi of India. And there was Hunter Biden very prominently featured at that dinner Thursday night. And while there does seem to be some sense of growing questions from the mainstream media, some are still rushing to the president's defense. This is The View. Listen.
The Hunter Biden story, the scandal, the this, the that, it's also the story of a father's love. And Joe Biden has never and will never give up on his son Hunter, and will never treat him lesser than. And so he is a father first. Take it or leave it. That's who he is. That is part of his heart.
Ben, according to The View, nothing to see here. It's the story of a father's love.
Look, I think that we all, especially in the wake of the fentanyl crisis and so much of the addiction problems that emerged during the pandemic, we probably all have someone in our lives who's gone through tough times, and we've tried to express love for them. That doesn't continue to allowing them to engage in potentially criminal activity using his father's name and deploying it in ways, with America's adversaries around the world in order to make money. That's not love. That's excusing criminal behavior. And if you can't tell the difference there, I think that frankly you're an idiot. This is obviously a situation where his own addictions, his own struggles are being used to cover up for the fact that he did a lot of things that are very questionable, including involving frankly, communist Chinese connected industries and others who, are not interested in America's, best light. The fact is that we have to get to the bottom of that. And, he can be a loving father, fine, if you want to compliment that about Joe Biden, but that does not extend to allowing his son to use his name in order to get millions and millions of dollars and then not pay his taxes on them.
And the influence peddling, obviously. The White House seemed to shift the goalposts last week. Ian Sam, spokesperson for the Biden administration, he used the line that the president was not in business with his son. What seems to be a shifting message from the president's never discussed business dealings with his son. So we'll see where they take that. Meanwhile, former Speaker Nancy Pelosi is now backing calls for new Supreme Court rules. Ben, by the way, the court now has a 6-3 conservative majority.
There certainly should be term limits. There certainly be term limits. And if nothing else, there should be some ethical rules that would be followed. It's shameful how Justice Thomas and Justice Alito have been so cavalier about their violations of what would be expected of a justice of the Supreme Court.
A scathing op-ed reads, Pelosi calling for ethical rules and attacking the integrity of Thomas is laughable. She has used her position in Congress to benefit her and her husband's stock portfolios for decades and has repeatedly slow-walked bills at the behest of companies that she and her husband invest in. Pelosi was a member of Democratic House leadership longer than 8 of the 9 justices have been on the Supreme Court. Some pretty bold claims she made in that interview, Ben.
The fact that Nancy Pelosi is still here, still being paid by the taxpayers, still engaging in this same type of unethical behavior when it comes to the stock portfolio and everything that I think our viewers definitely know about at this point, it makes the whole thing completely insulting. But here's what's really going on, Sandra. The fact is that they've done the polling and they figured out that they can't pack the Supreme Court. They wanted to. The most extreme members of their party still want to, but they've run the numbers on it, and they figured out that they can't. Independents would backlash against them, and because of that, they're trying to engage in a different approach, one which is designed to force recusals from various justices in order to try to, maybe lessen the impact of that majority. But the fact, as you know, is that that's not going to happen. It's not going to be something that these justices go along with because they've all experienced the hellfire that was thrown at them during the nomination processes, obviously, particularly Justice Thomas and Justice Kavanaugh. But to hear this from Nancy Pelosi, when she's been holding power as long as she has, that suddenly she's interested in term limits, give me a break. This is laughable. It's insulting. And the sooner that we can move away from this octogenarian generation of leadership that has held on to power way too long in America, the better from my perspective.
Really interesting, too, to see Justice Alito fire back in that piece in the Wall Street Journal last week, wondering if maybe he's charting a new path for the justices to defend themselves in a more public way, because they often don't. Thanks so much, Ben. I
certainly hope so.
Great to see you. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.